due to the lack of social housing, the taxpayer pays millions of pounds every year in housing benefits to private landlords, while the government demonises tenants and tells us that they have no money. What will your party do to actually change this?
One of the worst things that's happened in the last few weeks of this general election campaign was the announcement by the Conservatives that they would extend right to buy to tenants of housing associations to deepen and worsen the housing crisis, and we won't do that. We need to build, and we need to be clear that we need to build social housing. We need to allow councils to borrow to build, because it's only by being able to borrow for investment that we can do that. It's a scandal that in the last year alone in London, we only built 40 council houses. We need council homes, we need social housing. It is a scandal that Boris changed the affordability target to 80% of market value. 80% of market rents is far from affordable, and that 95% of the overall budget that we use of taxpayers' money on housing, that 95% is spent on housing benefit, has to change. So we need to build, and my view is that in the short term we have rent control. In the medium term we do need to look at the green belt, and I'm absolutely clear about that. And yes, we must build social housing, but I do not want us to build another generation of huge tower blocks that families actually don't want to live in on the 15th floor. And I oppose that sort of build. People want homes, they want mid-rise, they want gardens, and they recognise that you cannot just build here in the London Borough of Haringey. This building must also happen in conservative areas and areas that are green, and we must support the building for poorer people and for families.
As always, you don't look at what the Labour Party say, you look at what the Labour Party do. The Labour Party in Haringey have a plan to sell off all their council housing to private developers. We had Claire Coburn and Alan Strickland meeting at Cannes with private property developers to sell off 4,400 homes. Their own Equalities Impact Assessment has said that their housing policy is going to disadvantage the black and minority ethnic community, and yet they are pushing through with that. The regeneration that we are seeing in Tottenham is social cleansing. What we need is council housing, yes, but it means that we need the council to stand up and to reject the property developers. What we need is rent controls. Now, the Labour Party are not going to introduce rent controls. They've said they will introduce controls on the increase of rent, but that is not the same as rent caps. We need rent caps, not benefit caps. But what we need to do is to challenge this idea that the only way that you deal with austerity is to compensate for a lack of central government funding by getting income in your locality, by changing the people in the locality, by bringing people with disposable income into Tottenham and driving the poor out, because that is the council's stated position. They say they want to change the demographic makeup of Haringey. They want to change the social mix. They want to drive out the poor. They want to bring in the rich. That way they can get business investing. That way they can raise business rates. That is a scandalous response to a housing crisis. We need to fight for homes for people, not for profit, because the money's there. There's 70,000 empty homes in London, but they're being bought for investment and not for people to live in. And we do not want shiny new houses in Tottenham if they are for shiny new people from outside. We need decent homes for the people who live here.
We need more houses in Tottenham, but housing is not what we need only. We need health services, proper health services. We need better infrastructure for transport. We also need libraries, and we need our green spaces. We need to protect these. against the short-term quick gains that are desired through the housing regeneration that is planned. We have a lack of supply in housing market, which is driving the prices higher. And Liberal Democrats have an ambitious plan to build 300,000 new houses every year, starting with 10 garden cities. We are planning to build 10 new garden cities and prioritizing building on brownfield sites. David said that we have built very few social housing. Actually, the coalition government built in the first 2 years, in the 2 years that they built more social housing than the Labour government built in all their 13 years. We also have a help to buy and help to rent schemes, which will help people who are first time buying with their deposit. And our our rent to buy scheme is actually, I think, is a brilliant idea because it doesn't put you under the pressure of a mortgage that you have to keep up with payments, and it builds equity in the house that you are living in, and after 30 years it will belong to you.
I just think it's stunning that we continue giving money from the public sector to the private sector. Like we're all some big charitable donations to make the private sector feel better. Let me give you some figures on this. Private landlords are getting £26.7 billion a year from the taxpayer. That's over £1,000 each for them, from a whole range of tax breaks we give them. Well, if you actually invested in property to rent in 1996, you would have made 1,400% interest on that. We constantly subsidise the private sector. And the government, and in fact, I think Labour are going to continue this, is subsidising people to buy their own homes. All that does is give money to private house builders and pushes up the prices. It's because we have abrogated our responsibility of providing decent housing. Decent housing is far too important an area to be left to the free market. It's not just about a roof over your house. It affects your health. It affects your mental health. It affects your children's ability to study. We have to bring this back. More council housing, the Green Party will build 500,000 of them, and really bring in controls on the private rented sector. We cannot leave the market to deal with this. All we're doing is giving our money to rich landlords.
Thank you. With the shortage of affordable houses and with the rising population, demand is high. And we need to build a house every 7 minutes to meet the demand. UKIP will build 200,000 houses a year on the brownfield sites. We protect green belt sites. Council houses, social houses need to be built to meet the demand. But the local authority should prioritize the local people first, who has a strong local connection. That's how Haringey people will get more housing, because at the moment your housing list is more than 19,500, and the local people cannot get a place in that. Definitely prioritizing the housing to give it to the local connection, that will save the problem. We don't go for major developer because they make more money. They don't want to build the houses on brownfield sites. But as soon as they do, there will be no stamp duty if the house is built on brownfield site.
Well, when the Labour candidate was criticising my party's policy on right to buy housing association properties, I saw some worried faces on the front row among some Labour members. Perhaps this could be because a number of Labour Haringey councillors have themselves exercised the right to buy their own council home. So what I would say to these people in the audience is, you're in the wrong party. Join the Conservatives, because we are the real Workers' Party. We are the party of aspiration. We understand your desire to own your own home, and his party never, ever will. Now, when it comes to housing more broadly, I do agree with the Labour candidate on the importance of building more housing. But he talked about a scandal. Well, let me tell you what the real scandal is. The real scandal, ladies and gentlemen, is that under Labour's time in government, house building fell to the level of the 1920s. Things aren't perfect now, but at least house building is back up to the levels of 2007, and we're going in the right direction.
Okay, questions from